Hello friends, welcome back to automationtestinginsider.com. So today I come up with TestNG Framework Questions and Answers. So these are really important TestNG questions and answers as far as interview is concerned. And yeah, last time we talked about some tricky questions related to Selenium. And today we'll talk about TestNG Framework questions and answers. And these are really important questions and answers, guys. And once you go through all these questions and answers, definitely you can handle any kind of questions which will be asked in the interview. So we'll discuss one by one all the questions. So this is my blog, guys, automationtestinginsider.com. And if you're new to my blog, then I would recommend first uh, follow this blog. From here we have this follow button, so you'll get the notification whenever I post anything on this blog. And we have our YouTube channel, that is Automation Testing Insider, and just click on this subscribe button and click on this bell icon to get the notification for upcoming videos. So let's get started with the questions and answers one by one. So you need to just navigate to these Selenium questions and answers, and you can see we have covered till here part 6 scenario based some tricky questions, and these are the other questions and answers I have already covered. So you can go through one by one all the collection which I have posted over here, different collection on questions. Okay, so let's start with this TestNG framework. So let me click on this one. So there are around 60 plus questions I have listed on here. So these are really important questions, guys. Okay, so let's discuss one by one all the questions. So the first question is what is TestNG? So please refer the below points about the TestNG. So TestNG is a testing framework, automation testing framework. NG stands for next generation. Okay, and it's a Java unit testing framework. So basically it's a Java unit testing framework, and developer also uses this framework TestNG for unit testing. Okay, and it's play an important role when we do the automation using Selenium. Okay, so we use this TestNG framework in Selenium automation. So TestNG is an advanced framework designed in a way to leverage the benefits by both the developers and testers. TestNG is testing framework inspired from JUnit and NUnit. Okay, so JUnit again for Java, and NUnit is for .NET, but introducing some new functionalities that make it more powerful and easier to use. So you can say it is an extension of JUnit and NUnit, and it has some new features and new functionalities. Okay, so this is how you can explain about TestNG. And you can refer, already I have covered different posts on TestNG at the time of covering all the TestNG related topics, so you can refer this link as well, introduction to TestNGxml. Okay, what are the annotations, and what are the different annotations available in TestNG? So what do you mean by annotation? The first thing is, so TestNG annotation is a piece of code, okay, which is inserted inside a program or business logic. So basically annotation means some business logic is written inside it. Okay, or we can say the piece of code which will be inserted inside a program that is used to control the flow execution of the test methods. So here we are talking about the uh, test methods, right? In context with test methods. So there are different TestNG annotations available. So below are the different annotations used in TestNG. So we have before suite, after suite, before test, after test. So we'll discuss all these going forward when we get some more questions related to TestNG. So yeah, so these are the different annotations, guys. Already I have covered video on TestNG as well, so you can refer on those videos. So the annotated method will be run once before test in the suite have run. Okay, so this is before suite. It will be executed before. We'll see the hierarchy in the coming questions. Okay, and you can refer the link as well. I have given I have created a post on this, so you can refer this link. What is JUnit? So JUnit is a testing framework for the Java programming language. JUnit has been important in the development of test-driven Development, and is one of the family of unit testing frameworks which are collectively known as XUnit that originated with SUnit. So this is about JUnit. And what are JUnit annotations? So these are the different JUnit annotations available. Some of the annotations are extra in TestNG. We have different like before suite, and like these after test. These are not available over here. Here you can see. So we have limited annotations in JUnit. How is TestNG better than JUnit? So here we have link. I have created already post on this, so you can go over this and advantages of TestNG over JUnit. You can go through this. There are three major advantages of TestNG over JUnit. More annotations than JUnit, and annotations are easier to understand. Test cases can be grouped more easily, so we have grouping features in TestNG. Parallel testing is possible in TestNG. The testing framework can be easily integrated with tools like Maven, Jenkins, etc. So these are the different advantages of TestNG over JUnit. How to test case priority in TestNG? How to set the test case priority in TestNG? So we can set the priority of test cases, guys. So let me directly jump to this example. You can go through the whatever I have notes written over here. So let's say we can define the priority like this inside a test method. If we have this @test annotation, and you can give the priority like this. So this is an attribute, priority attribute, and we can define like this. You can give in minus as well. So whatever is lower, that will come first, that will be executed first, and then the it will be executed in that ascending order. So for this case we have given the priority 1, and for this case we have given the priority 0. Okay, so we'll discuss different scenarios going forward in different questions, but let's talk about this particular scenario. Okay, so here we have priority 1 and here we have priority 0. So which will execute first? So this test case will be executed first, test case 1, though it is written after this test case 2, but it will be executed first because the priority is lower than this one, the numbering. Okay, so in ascending order test case 1 will be executed first and then test case 2. How to ignore test cases? So there are different scenarios to ignore the test cases. There are different ways. Okay, so ways to skip, disable or ignore test in TestNG. So at suite level, how we can ignore? Okay, so using exclude method parameter in TestNGxml, we can exclude the method. Okay, so how do you do that? So you can see here inside a suite level. Okay, I mean suite level, how we can see. So this is our TestNG suite XML. This is the test tag classes, and inside that class we have one class, this add test case. Okay, and that includes 3 test cases. Okay, that has 3 test cases which is inside methods tag. Okay, so this is the one test case, we have 2 test case and third test case, and we have exclude parameter. Okay, exclude tag. So using that exclude, we can exclude any particular test case, particular test method. Okay, other 2 test cases will be included and it will be executed, and this will be excluded. So this is about the suite level. And test class level, how do you do that? So we have @ignore annotation that can be used that will be used inside a test class to ignore all the test cases which belongs to this particular test class. Okay, so we have one class called ignore test case class example, and that contains couple of test cases, test case 1 and test case 2, but we have written @ignore at the top of the class. So all these uh, test cases will be excluded, this will not be executed. Okay, and this is important one, test method level. Okay, so we have 2 ways at test method level. One is @ignore. So simply what we can do is, suppose we want to exclude this test case, we don't want to execute this test case 1. So how do you do that? We can simply put this @ignore annotation over here, and we can write some method over here, message as well. We can write some message as well, like not yet ready, please ignore. Whereas the second test case will be executed normally. So here you can see in output we have this test case 2. And the second way is at method level is using enable is equal to false. So that enable is an attribute. Okay, so here you can see enable is equal to false, so that means it will not be executed. This test case 2 will not be executed, only test case 1 will execute. Here you can see in the output test case 1. Use of depends on in TestNG. What is the use of depends on? Okay, so you can see you can just go through this theory part. Okay, and here we have one class called Multi-Dependency Test, and this is one test case start, the second test case init, process, and stop. So here you can see this the second test case init depends on start. So as long as I mean until unless if this will not execute this start, so this method will not be executed because this depends on the start method. Here you can see, so this is how you can give guys the attribute depends on method. So this method will depend on start method, this is start method. Okay, similarly the third method this process depends on start and init. So until unless if you don't execute this start and init, it will not be executed. And this the fourth one will depend on this depends on this uh, fourth method. Okay, this fifth one, 1 2 3 and 4 sorry yeah, this stop depends on the process. So this is how the execution will be starting the server. So and this is how we can set the priority as well. When we depends on from one test case to another test case, the first case will be executed, this is the this method will be executed first, the start. So here you can see starting the server, initializing the data for processing the data, stopping the server. Okay, so yeah, so this is how you can use the depends on attributes. How do you generate reports using TestNG? So there are two ways we can generate the reports. I mean there are yeah, so report generation is very important when you are doing the automation testing as well as for manual testing. By looking at the result, you can easily identify how many test cases are passed, failed, or skipped. So we have automatically this emailable report will be generated when you run the TestNG suite. Okay, so this is the default report, and another one is using index.html. So let me show you in the example. We can take any project. Let's take this MyStore project only. So inside test output, you can see first of all, yeah, so here you can see this emailable report. So this is the first report, and the second one is index.html. So these are the two reports we can get through TestNG. So these are the default HTML reports. What are the threads in TestNG uses of it? So we can utilize TestNG to perform load testing by creating multiple threads. Okay, so we can even re-execute a test case number of times we want. So there are couple of parameters like invocation count. Like suppose you want to execute test cases multiple times, so there is a attribute called invocation count. Okay, and the another one is thread pool size. So suppose we want to execute couple of test cases in different threads, so we have to use this thread pool size. The first attribute specifies the exact number of times a test method will get called, and the second one is and the latter sets the number of threads that will run to call the test method. Okay, so we have couple of parameters, invocation count and thread pool size. So these an example using you can see here. So invocation count we have given 2. So this case will be executed couple of times. So here you can see the output test case 1 and test case 1 and then test case 2. Now we'll use thread pool size over here. So here you can see we have given thread pool size is equal to 2 and invocation count as also 2. Okay, now we are going to get the thread ID as well. So that's why we have used this current thread dot get ID method. Okay, inside this thread class. So we can get the thread ID as well. So this test case 1 will be executed in two different threads, two times it will be executed. Okay, so this is how you will get the output. Thread ID 12 started, and this is the test case 1, and one more time it will execute on different thread. 11 is started, so we have two threads, two thread ID 11 and 12. So you can see this test case 1 executed two times in different threads. Which TestNG annotations you use for extend report? So this is basically for extend report, so you can refer, already we have created blog on this. So this is regarding extend report, guys, so you can refer this particular we have two links. Okay, so you can refer these two links on extend report. Already I have covered earlier how to prepare a customized HTML report using TestNG. So we need to implement iReporter interface to create a custom TestNG report. Okay, so there is an interface called iReporter, so we have to implement that. So whatever unimplement methods are there, we need to implement those methods inside this iReporter, okay, interface. So if you implement iReporter by any Java class, then you need to override the unimplemented methods as per your requirement to display the data in the custom report. Okay, so this is how you can do that, and steps to create the custom testing HTML report in Selenium. But generally nowadays we are using extend report and allure report. But yeah, still if you want to customize the report, then you can go through all these the things which I have written over here. So the steps clearly I have written. The first step is implement iReporter and override the unimplemented method. So there are different methods inside this iReporter interface. So here is the class, guys. So here is the implementation. So this is how you can implement iReporter. Okay, and there are different attributes you can set inside this. Okay, and the second thing is create a sample test case. So this is the sample test case. Here you can see this is very simple test case. And now updating the TestNGxml file with listeners. So we need to call that listener class, right? So this is how we can include the listeners inside TestNGxml. So yeah, you can go through this. I'm not going into detail of this one, so probably if I get time I'll create a separate video on this one to explain each and everything about how to generate, how to create the custom TestNG report. So you can go through this. Architecture of TestNG. So I have got this link, so you can refer about the architecture of TestNG. So it is given in very detailed level. So you can see what is a TestNG test framework, what is TestNG framework, and these are the this is the architecture of TestNG. So this is very good, guys, you can refer this. So this is application under test, the browser, and this is before method will be executed first, and then we have test method. Third is after method. Okay, after method will be executed once test method is getting executed, sorry. And then we have emailable report, the report will be generated. Here we have TestNGxml. So yeah, you can explain about this architecture. Write the order of TestNG annotations. So let me show you the order of TestNG annotations. So here I have given the execution hierarchy. So here you can see hierarchy of TestNG annotations. So you can refer this link. I have given, yeah, this link which I have navigated over here. So hierarchy of TestNG annotations. So the first thing is here we have test method, right? And then before method will be executed first when we run any test case, and then once test case getting executed, then after method will be executed. And this is before class. Okay, so inside a class we can have different test cases. So let's say we have three classes. So before class, before each test class, this before class method will be executed. Similarly in one test we have different classes. Okay, this will be set up in testng.xml. Okay, and we can have different classes, test classes. So for all the test classes, this will be executed first, and then this is the topmost buffer suite of any particular suite when we run it. Okay, so this is the hierarchy of TestNGxml. How do you how to run fail test case in TestNG? So there are two ways to run the fail test case using TestNG. So one is the manual way, like here I have given very good example like why test fails and how to execute the fail test cases. So there are two ways we can do that. By running the TestNG -fail.xml, this will be generated automatically when any test gets failed. And the second method is by implementing TestNG iRetry analyzer interface. So using that we can do that, and I have given very good example here with the help of program, so you can refer, and I have created video on this as well. So I think at bottom we have this video, so you can refer this video to get the more knowledge about this, how to run the fail test case in TestNG. Okay, when to use data provider TestNG annotation. So TestNG data provider, for the data driven testing we use this data provider. Okay, so test parameters example, this is an important features provided by TestNG in the TestNG data provider feature. Okay, it helps you to write the data driven test, which essentially means that same test method can be run multiple times with different data sets. Okay, so this is for data driven testing. What is TestNG assert, and list out some of the common assertions supported by TestNG. So here I have given we have two assertions guys, we have soft assertion and we have hard assertions. Okay, so we'll see going forward in coming questions we have about the explanation of soft and hard assertion. So if you want to know, you can refer this link, what is hard assertion and what is soft assertion. Okay, so we have question on the soft assertion as well going forward, so I'll show you that one. So for now let me close this one, these two as well. Yeah, how to create and run testng.xml. Okay, so testng file is configuration file in testng. So it is used to define test suites and test. It provides different options to include packages, classes and independent test methods. And here you can see about testng.xml. I have created blog already working with testng.xml. What is testng.xml file? What is this configuration file? What are the importance of testng.xml? And what are the different ways to create the different ways to set up testng.xml? Okay, so here we have clearly defined. So the first topmost tag is suite, and then test, we have classes, and inside that we can define the classes like this. There are different ways to define the testng.xml. We can include the packages as well inside this packages tag. Okay, we have exclude and include parameters as well, we can do like that. So these are the different ways to set up testng.xml. What is parameterized testing in TestNG? Okay, so there are two ways we can parameterize our tests. So parameterization data driven test is an execution strategy which allows us to run a test case automatically multiple times with different input values. Okay, so this is about the parameterization, and there are two ways in TestNG we can parameterize our test. The first way is with the help of parameters annotation and TestNGxml file. Okay, using the parameters annotation we can do that. And the second way is using data provider, and both the ways already I have clearly explained inside this post. Parameters annotation and TestNGxml file, so when to use what, the example, what is the limitation of parameter. Okay, so here we have clearly I have clearly explained about this one, so you can refer this. How to run a group of test cases using TestNG. So group of test cases, how we can run, we can divide our test cases into different groups. So here you can see one test method is there, we have given using this groups attribute. Okay, so that this particular test case login test belongs to smoke test functional test. test. Okay, so this is how we can divide into groups, and how to run this using TestNG.xml. We have one groups tag. Using that we can execute our test case for particular group. We'll discuss about this one in coming questions. Okay, what is the use of @listener annotation in TestNG? So the first of all, what is listener? So listener is defined an interface as an interface that modifies the default TestNG's behavior. Okay, so as the name suggests, listener listen to the event that defined in the Selenium script and behave accordingly. So it is used to Selenium by implementing listeners interface. So these are the different interfaces available for TestNG. Okay, so below are the few TestNG listeners, and mostly we used to have we use this iTest listener and iReporter. How can we create a data driven framework using TestNG? So you can refer the question 19. So 19, yeah, this is so data driven framework. Here I have explained about TestNG, sorry, parameters, using parameters and using data providers. So you can go through, already we have covered blog on this. I have covered video as well. Okay, so this is how we can write the parameters. So here you can see, yeah, here we have parameter tag. So this is how we can provide the parameters inside a TestNG.xml, and how to pass the value. So here you can see, let me show you. Yeah, here you can see @parameters inside test. Okay, on top of this test. So we have couple of parameters we can pass like this, username and password, that will be picked from this TestNG.xml. Okay, so this parameter name is username, another parameter is password1. So here you can see username and password. I think this is wrong, it should be password1, and yeah, this is username and password. Okay, so this is how we can configure. 1 second, that would be value. So username, the name should be like this, username and password, this should be password. The parameter name should match with this parameter. Okay, so this is how you can do. Yeah, this is the example of that one, username and password one. What we have, username and password, that should be password. Yeah, and the second way is passing parameters with data providers. Okay, so data provider, how do you do that? We need to create one data provider method. So this is the data provider method. Using that we can pass like this inside a test method, data provider test1. So here you can see in the example, so we have before method. In this test method, you can see here for login test we have this data provider attribute. So this is the name of the data provider, and here you can see we have created one data provider, this login credentials. So that will be the method name. Okay, data provider method name. So this is how you can see the parameterization in TestNG. So you can refer this video as well. How to run a group of test cases using TestNG. Yeah, this is already seen. How to pass parameters through TestNGxml to a test case. So you can refer question 19 on the same question, and for data provider also you can refer the 19 number question. And yeah, these are the different couple of parts, data driven testing framework part 1 and data driven framework part 2. So you can refer these two links. Can I call a single data provider method for multiple functions and classes? So yes, you can do that. For same data provider you can use for multiple test cases. How to skip a test method or a code block in TestNG. So this is how you can skip. So there are two ways you can skip test method. So test level, we have couple of ways. One is @ignore attribute, @ignore annotation, and the second way one is enable is equal to false attribute. Okay, so this is how you can skip. What is soft assertion in Selenium, and how can you mark a test case as failed by using soft assertion? So basically in soft assertion, it is a custom assert mechanism supported by TestNG. This is the package. We can use it when a test has to continue execution after an assertion fails in the sequence. Okay, so what happens when we use hard assertion is whenever test fails, so the test will be aborted itself. At that particular point of time, it will not execute the further test case. Okay, so to avoid that kind of situation, what we'll do, we can use this soft assertion. So we can see in this example, so we have this soft assertion. Okay, soft assertion demo. This is the class, and this is the test case one, and we need to create the object of soft assert class to use the soft assertion. Okay, and here you can see the test one start, and here we return the assertion. Okay, assert equals. So here you can by seeing this statement, it will be you can easily see that it will be failed, because this the text is different, right? Here I is lowercase, and here you can see in uppercase, so this will be failed. And after that we have one more statement, test one and then we have print statement, and at last we have to call to fail the test case. So that is the part of question, how can you mark as a test case failed by using soft assertion. So if you don't use this assert.all method, then it will simply pass all the test cases, all the steps. So that's why whenever the assert fails, so we have to explicitly we have to call this assert all method, and then output would be like this: test one start, test one end. So you can see here test one end is after assertion failure. Okay, here you can see test one end. So this will be executed as it is. So in case of hard assertion, if we use over here hard assertion, then this part will not be executed. So this is the advantage of having soft assertion. So here you can see, you can get the output like this: the following assert fails because of this assertion failure. Okay, explain what is a group test in TestNG. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can include the groups tag inside a suite tag. So there are two ways you can include inside a suite tag and inside test tag as well. So this is how you can include this is inside the suite tag, so groups tag, and here you can see we can provide our group name, and this will be given for this will be defined inside a test method. Okay, whether what particular which test case belongs to which group. So in the above case, we provide a group name smoke test to 3 test cases for 3 different classes. Okay, the second case is for when groups tag is defined inside a test tag. So here you can see earlier we defined using a suite tag. So all the test classes whatever belongs to particular group will come under this suite tag. Okay, because that groups belongs to we have defined the group inside this suite tag. And the second thing is, yeah, when groups tag is defined inside a test tag. So here you can see this is the suite name, we have test tag, inside that we have defined this group, and that belongs to we are going to run only smoke test, and these are the classes. So whatever test method with respect to all these classes which belongs to this smoke test will be executed as part of this test run. And tests belonging to multiple groups, you can define a particular test which belongs to different groups. Like for this, in this case, test case 1 belongs to group A and group B. So what is the difference between factory @factory and @data provider annotations? So the annotation like factory and data provider are mainly used to iterate the same test class with different test data. So basically data provider is to iterate the test method, and factory annotation is used to iterate the test class. So we'll see an example using this @factory. Okay, data provider I think already we have covered earlier. So here I have given the example of data provider as well. So here you can see This is the data provider class, and this is before class method. We have this test method, and here we have data provider name, and this is the data provider. We are passing this data provider name over here to the test method, right? The couple of values 1 and 2. Okay, and data provider method will will return the object array. Okay, 2D array object. So this will be the output of this data provider class using data provider. Okay, the parameter value is 1, the parameter value is 2, and this is important using @factory. So generally we don't use this @factory, but yeah, it's important to understand like what is this @factory annotation. So the simple test class contains the test method and before class method. So here you can see in this simple test what we have done is we have created one private variable string param, and we have one constructor to initialize the object. Whenever we create the object, so this we will get the value. Okay, and we have couple of methods, this before class and this test. This is the test method, guys. So that will print the param value. Now we have another class, simple test factory, where we are going to define the @factory annotation. So that will return the object array again. Okay, and here you can see we are calling the constructor simple test. We are passing the value 1 and 2 from here by creating the object of simple test, the previous class, by creating the object of this simple test. And we need to run this simple test factory class, this class, not the other class, the test class. So when we run this class, so what will happen? It will pass couple of values and it will iterate this whole class. Okay, so this is how we'll get the output. So the difference between @factory and data provider is, so here you can see it can be used to execute all the test methods present inside a test class with multiple set of data using the separate instance of the class. So using this we can instantiate a class multiple times rather than just a method. So the difference is using data provider we can iterate the method, and using factory annotation we can iterate the whole class. Now let's go to the next. What is the difference between before method and before class? So before method will be executed, this annotated method will be run before each test method, right? And if you are going to use after method, then the after method will be executed. So before each test method it will be executed. Before class means the annotated method will be run before the first test method in current class is invoked for the current class. Okay, before test, the annotated method will be run before any test method belonging to the classes inside a test tag is run. So inside a suite tag, suite TestNGxml, we have this test tag, right? So whatever classes belongs to that particular test, the annotated method will run before any test method. Okay. So what are the different attributes for @test annotation? So please refer the below to understand about TestNG. Different attributes. So let me show you the link. So there is a priority attribute which we already talked about. We have description attribute. So suppose you want to give the description about any particular test case, you can give using this description. We have timeout. So define the maximum time limit for any test case, you can define using this timeout. We have depends on, we already discussed. We have enabled, this is also we have discussed. We have groups and always run. Invocation count already we have discussed. So these are the different attributes, guys. You can go through all these. Now how can we run test cases in parallel using TestNG? So for parallel execution I have created a blog. Let me go through it. For parallel, so we need to understand what is thread, parallel testing, what is parallel testing, benefits of having parallel testing. So these are different benefits. So you can go through this method, guys. So we can achieve the parallel testing using two ways. So first one is using TestNGxml file using parallel attribute of suite tag, and the second one is we can configure an independent test method to run the test method in multiple threads. So you can refer this blog to understand more about the parallel testing. Suppose I want to check a particular exception in TestNG. How will you check? So we have an attribute in TestNG. Using that we can catch the exception in TestNG as well. So TestNG provides an option of tracing the execution handling of the code. So how do we do that? So we have this class message util, and we have one private variable over here, and we have constructor to initialize the value of that variable, and we have one print method over here. Okay, so to print the value of this message, so simply we have this print statement over here, and we have one variable int a is equal to 0, local variable, and here you can see b is equal to 1 by a. So that means this will give arithmetic exception, because the number whatever number is there which when we divide by 0, that will give arithmetic exception. Okay, now using this expected exception test, another class, okay, we are going to use this method, and we'll call this method. So how to handle this exception? So we have one attribute called expected exceptions and arithmetic exceptions dot class. So we know like which exception it will it will give. So this is the class exception class arithmetic exception dot class. So you need to just define this attribute like this, so that it will be executed normally, like inside test print message you can see this message will be printed and exception test. Okay, so this is the value of this message. So that is the use of how we can handle exception using TestNG. How cross-browser testing is handled in Selenium. So what is cross-browser testing, why do we need, and the complete blog I have written on complete post I have written on what is this cross-browser testing. You can refer this. Explain the structure of Testngxml. So you can refer this image, like we have topmost suite tag, and then groups will be defined inside a suite, that will be defined that can be defined inside test as well. After suite tag we have test, and then classes, we have classes like this. So this is how you can define you can explain about the structure of testng.xml. What are the different methods of assert? So these are the different methods inside assert class. So we have assert equals, so that will compare checks two primitives or objects data types, okay, whether they are equal or not. We have assert true, assert false, assert not equal, assert null, and we have assert same, assert not same. So this will, what is the difference between assert equal and assert same? So what this does is this will do is assert same is method test if two object reference point to the same object. So this will check the reference. Okay, assert same, basically the address where we stored the variable. What is the difference between include and exclude in TestNG? So here I have given the example. One second. Yeah, so this is the test class. We have three test cases in this test class. Now using inside these methods, right, in methods tag we can define exclude and include. So the first two test cases, the couple of test cases we have included, and we can exclude. If you don't want to execute any particular test method, then you can use this exclude tag, and you can exclude the test case from the execution. How to execute the single selected method in TestNG? So you can simply you can give include parameter over here, include tag. Inside include you can define that particular test method. Let's say in this case we have three test methods, right, and suppose we want to execute only this one. So you can easily simply you can define that test method name over here, so that will be executed because that will be we have included only that method, and we have defined in TestNGxml. So that method only will be executed when we run this suite XML. This is the path of the test class. How the packages and classes are structured in TestNGxml. So you can refer these two links, guys, related to TestNG annotations, how they are structured, how basically TestNG.xml is structured. Okay, already we have discussed about this one at top as well, with using image, this image as well. Tell me a login page script in TestNG. So this is basic login functionality of using TestNG. So we have given, so this is very basic, you can just refer this program and you can understand easily. What is the difference between @parameters and data providers in TestNG? Okay, so this is already we have discussed. So what it does is data provider pass the different parameters on a single test in a single execution, whereas parameters pass the parameters just once per execution in TestNG. Okay, so this is the difference, the main difference between data providers and parameters annotation. In data provider we can pass the multiple values in a single run, whereas in parameters we can pass only one value at a time. How to create suites in TestNG? So there are different ways to set up TestNG.xml. I think earlier we talked about this one, so you can refer this blog, this post. How to prioritize the test in TestNG at class level and suite level. So method level at, yeah, so it at class level and suite level. So here I have given the answer of method level as well. So this is how you can define the priority. So let's have a look at method level first. So these are the different test cases we have. Okay, so if you are not using any priority in your test method, then TestNG assign by default priority 0. So here we are not using any priority. Okay, so here you can see TestNG, test, we have not given any priority over here. We have three test cases, right? Test C, A and B. So this will be executed by the 0 priority will be given to all the test methods, and this will be executed alphabetically. So how will it will be executed? A, B, C, class A, B and C. If there is same priority assigned to the test methods, then execution order will be alphabetically. So this is another kind of example, another scenario. So here we have defined priority 1 and here priority 1. So we have given the same priority, and this is the test C and this is test A. So alphabetically this will be executed first and then this will execute. And here you can see test B, there is no priority given to this test B. So the no priority given means the priority is 0 for this test B. So B will be executed first and then A and C. Another case would be in case of different priority, execution will be from minimum to maximum priority. So we have different priority over here, -1, 1, 0. So how it will it will be executed? First 0 will be -1 will be executed, C, B and A, -1, 0 and 1. At suite level, how we can define? So classes will be executed in the order as they defined. So here we have defined a couple of classes like class B first and class A later. So first class, whatever methods belongs to this particular class will be executed first and then after this class. How to create groups of groups in TestNG? So you can see this, we have created one groups class and we have defined different groups over here. We have one sanity group, this test belongs to sanity and smoke, and this test belongs to regression. Now we can divide them into different groups. They are defined into different groups. So how we can run? Inside a test tag, what we can do is we can include all these groups in one run. Okay, so this for this particular suite, this test, all will be executed with irrespective of whether they belongs to sanity, smoke or regression, because all will be defined inside a this groups tag. Okay, similarly you can create a separate group where you can define the number of the groups which you want to run. How to exclude a particular exclude a particular group from a test case execution using TestNG. So we have this exclude, like for method we have the same tag, so you can exclude a group as well. So in this case this regression will be executed from the execution. how to write regular expressions in the TestNGxml, to search @test methods containing smoke keyword. So this is how we can search, guys, inside a method tag we have include, and then you can search for a particular test method like this smoke. So we have in double inverted comma we have this double inverted quotation, we have this dot and then star and then the name of the test method. You can give here sm as well or oke as well, because we have given a star, so it will consider whatever characters, uh, pre-characters. Okay, and here similarly we have dot and star over here as well, so it will search like this. If you define like sm, then even it will execute that particular method. What is the time unit we specify in the test suites and test cases? So that will specify in milliseconds for timeouts attribute. Okay, list out various ways in which TestNG can be invoked. So there are different ways we can invoke the TestNG. Using Eclipse we can do that, using ant we can do that. I have not covered this ant build tool, probably we can cover this later on. From the command line also we can execute, and using IntelliJ IDE. How to run TestNG using command prompt? So I think already I have covered this the video on this as well, guys, in TestNG tutorial, so you can refer that. But here I have given the complete steps as well, how to create the batch file and how to run that, so you can refer the steps. What is the use of @test invocation count, right? So this attribute tells how many times TestNG should run a test method, and we have thread pool size already we have discussed earlier. So the number of threads we want to run, we can run using this thread pool size inside a test method. What does the test timeout mean in TestNG? So the maximum number of milliseconds a test case should take. So this is how you can define the timeout as well. Is it possible to pass data through TestNGxml file? If yes, then how? So we have parameters. Using parameters attribute we can annotation we can pass the data from XML. Do you run test cases in parallel with TestNG? If yes, how many threads, and does it cause any problem? So yeah, we have to define the threads when we so if you remember, while creating the framework I have used thread local class, object of thread local. So using that we can define the different threads. Okay, what is TestNG listener class and why do we use it? So listeners, about listeners already we have discussed at top. So these are the different interfaces available. How will you get the browser value from TestNG? Yeah, so you can refer the cross browser testing. How do we get the browser value for cross browser testing? So complete post I have given over here step by step, so you can refer what is cross browser testing, why do we need. Okay, can we run TestNG class code without using TestNG annotation? So yes, you can run that, but yeah, you can use the main method, but main method will execute only one single class, right? Whereas in TestNG we have testng.xml file. Using that we can set up different classes, so that is the difference. How to install TestNG? How to install TestNG in Eclipse, and how do you verify that TestNG is installed properly in Eclipse or not? So yeah, guys, for that one I have already created a post. You can refer step by step, and how you can check the whether it is installed or not as well. What is error collector in TestNG? What is its usage? So this class allows to collection of errors during the process of retrieving the data from the test method parameters. Detail about TestNG test output folder. So by default the test report file HTML and XML are written to the folder named test output. So automatically this will be generated test output. Inside that we have different HTML and XML reports. What is the difference between WebDriver listeners and TestNG listeners? So listeners are those which will be listening to any state change. Okay, so in case of WebDriver, whenever anyone clicks on button on web page, then automatically a method will be called. Okay, that is in case of WebDriver listener. Whereas in TestNG, about the TestNG listener, there are actual listeners which listen, okay, to the test execution events. So whenever we execute the start of the test case, the method will be called. The when the test case getting skipped, it will be called, I'm sorry, it will be executed. So there are different examples we have on start method, before start method, after finish, on finish. So these are the different methods we have. Explain how does TestNG allow you to state dependency within example. So we have depends on methods and using depends on groups as well. Okay, so this is, let me show you. Here we have not written depends on. I think I have forgot to include here depends on methods. Yeah, now let's see. Depends on already we have covered earlier, so I'll correct this program, guys. Like this case belongs to, I mean, depends on. Here we have to include the attribute, and the second attribute is we can add the depends on method attribute to the test at the test annotation and execute the same program. Oh sorry, this is the simple program I have given over here, and here the first example I have given using how one test method will be depends on another method. So this is how we can, yeah, this depends on test case 2, test case 1 depends on test case 2, right? So it will be executed like this, test case 1 depends on test case 2. So test case 2 will be executed first and then test case 1. Let's see the dependencies with XML. So how we can do that? So we have this group, first group, and here we have second group, and inside groups tag, inside in TestNGxml we can define the dependencies as well, dependencies tag, and here you can see you can write the group name depends on this group. So this first group will depends on this second group. The execution will be test case 2 first and then test case 1 later. So this is how you can define the dependency in TestNGxml as well, using this dependencies tag. Sequence of execution of below annotations. Okay, so at the rate test before groups. So you can refer this link to know the execution hierarchy of all these annotations. Explain sequence, execution sequence of these different priorities. So the negative will be coming first, the lower priority. -1, 0, 1, 2 will be the execution hierarchy of this question. Explain execution sequence of this one, 1, 2 and 0 priority. So this would be treated as 0 priority, so 0, 1, 2 will be the execution. So these are the different questions, guys, on TestNG, and yeah, you just go through one by one all the questions. So all the questions are very important as far as interview is concerned, and about to get more knowledge on TestNG you can refer all these questions. Yeah, so this is about the TestNG questions and answers, and in the next video we'll talk about Maven, GitHub and Jenkins interview questions and answers. So let me show you. Yeah, so this TestNG framework is we have covered the question and answers about TestNG framework. Now in the next video we'll talk about Maven, GitHub, Git and GitHub and Jenkins interview questions and answer, and probably later on we'll cover this Selenium framework and Selenium grid. So yeah, so if you're new to my channel, guys, then please subscribe this channel and click the bell icon to get the notification for upcoming videos, and please do not forget to follow this blog as well. So thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day. Bye bye.